Hello everyone. Today we will discuss the different sampling methods. The introduction. Sampling is the act, process, or the technique of the selecting a suitable samples or a representative part of the populations for the purpose of determining the parameters or the characteristics of the whole populations. The purpose of that sampling is the economy. In economy, is taking a sample requires fewer resources than a census. And the timeliness. A sample may provide you with needed information quickly. And the large size of many populations have many populations about which interferences must be made are quite large. Inaccessibility of some of the populations. There are some populations that are so difficult to get the access to that only a sample can be used. The destructiveness of the observations. Sometimes the very act of the observing the desired characteristics of a unit of the populations which destroys it for it intended. Accuracy. Accuracy in the sampling. It is a sample may be more accurate than a census. A sloppily conducted census can provide the less reliable information than a carefully obtained sample. Now, some merits of the sampling methods are here. Sampling method, it saves the times. Also, it reduces the cost of inquiry. Sampling, it gives the more reliable results. A more detailed information can be obtained from the sampling. This sampling is convenient for the administrations and the method is the scientific method. This sampling is only method when investigation is causing the destructions of the units examined. Demerits of the sampling methods. This sampling it requires the services of expert investigators. And if the survey is not properly planned, we may get the misleading results. These are the demerits. Also, this sampling requires the better supervision. Means the most that means it requires the more trained person and it is more sophisticated techniques for the planning and execution. If the sample is not adequate, it may not indicate true characteristics of the populations. These are the demerits of the sampling methods. Then the bias and errors into the sampling. Sample is expected to the mirror the population from which it comes. However, there is no guarantee that any sample will be precisely representative of the population from which it comes. There are two basic causes for the sampling errors. First is the chance and second is the sampling bias. In chance, that is the error that occurs just because of bad luck and this may result in a untypical choices. And B is the sampling bias. A sampling bias is a tendency to favor the selection of the units that have particular characteristics. And it is the error that results from solely from the manner in which the observations are made. Unintended errors. There are some unintended errors also included into the sampling methods. The manner in which the response is elicited, the social desirability of the persons surveyed, that is the unintended errors into the sampling. In sampling, the purpose of the study is required, and the personal biases of the interviewers or survey writers. These are the unintended errors. Now, what is meant by the sampling methods? Sampling methods, that means how a sample is selected from the given populations. And the larger the number of units observed for the data collection, the more representative is the sample of its populations. The sampling method is employed for selecting a sample is important in determining the how closely the sample represents the population. Next is the sampling methods. There are four main sampling methods are here: random sampling, systematic sampling, multistage sampling, and cluster sampling. The random sampling, which includes further two types, that is the simple random sampling and stratified random sampling. In first main type is the random sampling. Random sampling, which further divided into two types, that is simple and stratified sampling methods. This simple sampling method is further divided into the two classes. First is the lottery method and second is the random number table. In simple random sampling, in this method the sample is being selected in such a way that each unit of the population has an equal chance of being included in the samples. A simple random sample can be selected by the two methods, that is lottery method and random number tables. First one is the lottery method. This is the simplest method of the selecting a random samples. Suppose we have 500 units in populations and we wish to select the 50 units out of them. So, assign the numbers 1 to 500 units of the populations, and next step is the prepare the slips bearing numbers from 1 to 500. Then the slips should be homogeneous in shape, size, color, etc. These slips are shuffled and put in the box. Then 50 slips are selected and these units with the numbers on the slips are selected will constitute a random samples. This is about the lottery method. And second is the random number tables. In random number tables, used a device to choose the samples which included in survey and quality control inspection samples, or to assign the experimental units to treatments, such as the assigning the patients to drug treatments. This random number table method of the sampling, it is most practical and inexpensive method of selecting a random samples. This method has been constructed in such a way that each of the digits from 0, 1, 2 up to the 9, which appears with approximately the same frequency and independent of each other. Suppose we want to select the random sample of the size 50 out of 500. Then give the numbers from 1 to 500 to the units of the populations. Then open any page of the random number table, select any row or any column and consider a 3-digit random number. Then if the random number is less than 500, say 237, then select the unit number is 237 from the population. If the random number is greater than 500, then ignore the number. The units selected constitute the random sample. Mm, This is the second sampling method is the systematic sampling. This technique is used when complete and up-to-date list of all units in the population is available. First unit is selected by the method of random sampling and the remaining units are selected according to the some predetermined pattern which involving the regular spacing of the units. Suppose there are 500 units in the population and we wish to select a sample size is 10. Then we see that out of every 50 that is equals to 500 by 10 units. We have to select one unit. Then select a random number from 1 to 50 and suppose the random number selected is 27. Then the systemic sample will consist of the units bearing numbers that is 27, 77, 127, 477. It is useful only when complete and up to the date frame is available and units are arranged in some specific orders. Third main type of the sampling method is multistage sampling. In this multistage sampling, which is useful in many large scale survey where the preparation of the list of all units in the populations is difficult. In this method, the random selection is primary, intermediate, and final or the ultimate final units from a given population. Thus, the area of investigation is restricted to a small number of final units, and this will reduce the cost compared with the simple random sampling from the whole population. Suppose a socio-economy survey is to be conducted in a state where complete list of the all household is not available. In this case, the select a random sample of the some district from the total district of the state. Within the selected district, the select the random samples of some talukas. Then from the selected talukas, select the random sample of some villages and finally random samples of the households from the selected villages. This is a four-stage sampling. This is a very good example for the sampling method. Fourth method is the cluster sampling method. In this method, the population from which the sample is to be drawn is divided into the number of groups or the clusters, each of which contains the subunits. The clusters may or may not have equal numbers of units. We select a random samples of some clusters from these clusters and then observe and measure each and every unit in selected clusters. Suppose we are interested in obtaining the information about the income of the residents in a city. The whole city may be divided into n different blocks or localities which form the clusters. Okay, and a simple random sample of a small n blocks, that is clusters, is drawn. The residents in the selected blocks constitute the cluster samples. Now, the sampling plans. First is the single sampling plan. In single sampling plan, inspect a sample, that is n, placed from the lot capital N. If the number of defects found in a sample does not exceed to C, the lot is accepted. If the number of defects found in the sample exceed the value C, all the pieces in the remainder of lot inspected. double sampling plan. In this sampling, after test, three conditions arises. First is the accept lot, reject lot, or no decision. No decision in this case, the second sample is taken and to combine the results of both the samples and made the final decision. Next is the sampling plan is used for in starting materials, that is the application of sampling plan. Second is the finished products. In finished products, the sampling plan is a very applicable method, and sampling plan is also useful for the packaging materials. Sampling plan for the finished products. Sampling plan for finished products is mainly used into the industries. The minimum size of the samples to be taken is determined by the requirements of the analytical procedures used to test the products, that is the test of unit dosage forms for uniformity of the weight, volume or the content, or the sterility test can be requires a large number of the samples. Sampling and testing may be adjusted according to the experience with the source of the product, for example, manufacturer or the suppliers. Sampling plan for the finished products and the packaging materials. Here is the sampling plans and package for the finished products and packaging materials are here. For the sampling plans for packaging material, it should be based on the defined sampling standards. For example, British standard, that is BS, his number is given here. And as for packaging material, sampling plans for finished products should be based on the defined sampling standards such as BS, this 600121. This is the code of that product or material. Here is in above there is the finished product, and in second there is the packaging products or material. Conclusion of this sampling methods. In In conclusion, it can be said that using a sample in researches, it saves mainly on money and time. If a suitable sampling strategy is used, the appropriate sample size is selected and necessary precautions taken to reduce on sampling and measurement errors. Then a sample should yield valid and reliable informations. The sampling methods are very useful techniques or methods in the different industry levels. Thank you.